Summer's here, and it's time to lounge around and soak up the sun. Not a chance! This is a whole new ballgame!
Okay, let's do what we always do and approach the subject through personal anecdotes and side tangents. Starting with... I never had any of the Nintendo home consoles as a kid. I was still exposed to most of the classics at sleepovers, my cousin's house, or at the stand-up booth in the video game store, but I never owned one myself. Instead, my journey into couch gaming started in 2003, when I finally got my first very own home console, the PlayStation.
I'm talking about this.
Now, children, this might be hard to believe, but back in those days you couldn't log into a PlayStation Network or a Steam to download your favorite games off of the World Wide Web. Instead, you had to put physical discs into your machine. God, that's such a stale joke, not beating the 𝐄𝐌𝐿 allegations anytime soon. So this meant that if you were me, circa 10 years old, there were about 3 ways to learn of new games. Seeing it at a friend's house, seeing it on the one video game shelf at the video rental store in my small hometown, or by simply receiving it as a birthday present or something like that. Now, to be clear, it's not like there weren't other ways to hear about games in 2003. Had I been just a little bit smarter, a few years older and/or had access to a stable internet connection, I could, of course, have just gone online to any of the various video game related websites and forums that were around back then. I also could have subscribed to any of the gaming magazines that were available in Sweden at the time, like this one, for example, that was quite popular around the time, PlayStation-magasinet. I picked a couple of these ones up recently. This one's in Japanese, so that's not really relevant here today, but man, I love just looking through these. Obviously, there are the reviews, but it's also stuff like, here, rumors about the just announced Sony personal assistant for the PS1, and they're kind of theorizing on what it might be able to do, and also declaring that it will be sold in Europe starting sometime in 1999. That never ended up happening. The Pocket Station, as it ended up being called, was exclusive to Japan, and it's seemingly pretty boring. I guess I'll have to wait for someone like Fami to make a video about it so I can understand why it's actually super cool. There are the letters that people would write in, like this kid who's furious that they don't have any news on the PS2. Quote,
"Whenever anyone writes asking about the PlayStation 2, you say, we haven't heard anything from Sony, or Sony hasn't shown off the PlayStation 2.
What? Aren't you journalists or whatever you call yourselves? You have to put some pressure on Sony. You can't just sit around and wait for them to show something off.
And of course, the ads for games, peripherals, this mod chip with the disclaimer that unfortunately unlocking the region on your PS1 also lets you play pirated games, so please don't do that. And of course the actual consoles. Now this right here is the exact PlayStation 1 that I received in 2003 in this here box, along with these 2 controllers, both the analog stick version 1 and also the sort of naked looking smaller one. But that's not all, because it also came with one more super secret way of discovering new games. Oh. The demo disc. I fucking love demo discs, man. Demo discs were, if I may be so bold, probably one of the most beautiful forms of advertising ever created, because they were, at least as far as I was concerned, essentially just free games You might have gotten a demo disc bundled with your PlayStation console, or through some promotional thing at your local game store, the bargain bin at your Goodwill, or most commonly, bundled with your subscription to a gaming magazine, like the official PlayStation magazine, PlayStation Underground, or PlayStation Magasinet. These discs, which were created by both game distributors and by Sony themselves, would often contain a grocery store sample equivalent section of any given game. 1 or 2 levels, 5 to 15 minutes of gameplay. Now, because the years of smooth video streaming were far in the hazy future, along with the self-lacing shoes and instant pizza hydrators of today, there was simply not as much information available about what games actually felt like to play. If you didn't have a demo, but you wanted to know if any given game would be worth your time and money, you had to rely on finding a games reviewer that you often agreed with, or a friend with rich parents that you could, get to invite you over. So, suffice to say, demo discs were a pretty killer marketing strategy. But not only that, a lot of kids, me for example, got our first consoles from our parents, who, bless their boomer hearts, often weren't completely sure of how this thing worked or what the appeal was, which meant that even if you now had the console sitting right in front of you, there was absolutely no guarantee that you had anything to, actually play on. Luckily for me, my PS1, as outlined right here on the package, came with such a demo disc, and this right here is that exact disc, the PAL Demo 1, or specifically the PB-PX95007. And if I plug this in and pop this in, we can see... Hello? What the fuck is this? Why is the sync fucked up? This worked yesterday. What the fuck? No fucking way. What? Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, there we are. We can explore what it has to offer. Bro, this is so fucking good. And this menu right here represents the first meaningful interaction I ever had with 3D graphics. I had played Super Mario 64 at a friend's house. My dad had some kind of Pac-Man clone on our Windows 98 PC that had some sort of rudimentary 3D graphics, and I, to this day, think that the outro for X-Men the Animated TV show is one of the most baller things to have ever been put on screen, but none of that felt like this. Navigating through this underwater-themed menu here, we can go to the videos section containing gameplay trailers for Metal Gear Solid, Spyro the Dragon, 𝐻𝐵 3, and of course, Spice World. God, so much loading. Everything didn't used to be better. Console players have no idea what I'm talking about. What do you mean used to be? But of course, the games is where it's at. So heading back over there, we have some absolute banger demos, all of which I played to death. There's Tekken 3, Medieval, Gran Turismo, which we'll come back to. And lastly, at the very end of the list, is the one that by far stuck with me the most, and also the actual topic of today's presentation. A little offering called Kula World. Right, I've almost forgotten these early levels. Obviously later on in the video I'm gonna show more gameplay, but I'm not gonna lie, it is gonna be a little while before we get there. So for now I just kind of wanted to play through some of these early maps. They introduce things so elegantly in this. So like you always jump that far, right? And so then if you were to jump here, you just jump out into the void. I'll show you once. It's like that. and you die. But then you see that these bananas are on the side there. So you go over here and you do that. And you get the bananas, and also you learn that sometimes you have to kind of consider where the ledge is. It's not rocket science, but it's like very neatly implemented, the way that you learn as you go. Now I do want to explain that the word kula means marble or sort of ball in Swedish, which is how this game initially managed to catch my attention before I even had gotten into the gameplay. To my knowledge, I had never seen a Swedish word in a game title before, and with my back then even more limited grasp of the English language, I had no doubt in my mind that this in fact had to be a Swedish game. And as it turns out, I was right. I was in fact so right that during the research of this video I found out that they at some point had a Swedish flag colored ball in the game that they just didn't end up using. It's not in the game. Look at it. This is what we could have had.
This is what they took from us.
And if you're wondering who they are...
My name is Jens, and I was a developer at Game Design Sweden in the 90s.
I'm jesfiotcontact. I'm a game developer, I would say. I've been so for the last, I don't know, since 95 or something.
𝐄𝐌𝐀𝐈𝐋. I've been a games developer since the early 90s, something like that.
Stefan Gatt. I started to program when I was 8 years old.
And together they were Game Design Sweden AB, responsible for the game Kula World. Kula What the fuck?
Oh, but Kula World was the name in Europe, and 𝐄𝐌𝐾 was the Japanese name, I think. We were one of the few that were actually allowed, one of the few Western products that was actually allowed to be localized for the Japanese market. It took a long time. And Rollaway was the US name. The internal name was just Cube, I think. The Cube or Cube.
Now, just to get out of the way who these guys even are, after Kula World, Johannes went on to be art director for Mirror's Edge, Star Wars Battlefront, and a bunch of Battlefield games at DICE. Jesper worked on games like Stuntman for the PS2, Battlefield 2 Modern Combat, and Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. Jens went on to co-found Teenage Engineering, who develops some of the coolest and most expensive synths, like the OP1, along with various other cool things. And Stefan works in cognitive neuroscience stuff. It's all, it's very interesting, but it's also very outside of the scope of anything that I should be talking about at all. But so yes, the boys behind the topic of today's presentation went on to do some pretty cool stuff that I assume many of you have heard about before. But let's go back to before all of that stuff, to before Game Design Sweden and Kula World, all the way back to... If you've ever downloaded a cracked version of Sony Vegas, you know that apart from a mediocre editing software and the lingering question of whether or not Sony even knew that their name was attached to this thing, you also got something else along with it. This, if I can actually play the song, which I hope I can, is Unreal Superhero 3 by Kenneth and Rez, and it's a tracker song and a, I guess, decent segue into talking a bit about the demo scene. See, in the early 80s, when home computers started becoming more commonplace, some people thought to themselves, this is cool and all, but wouldn't it be even cooler if I didn't have to pay for the games and software for this thing? And so pirating became a thing. Crackers started to metaphorically break games open to remove copy protection and make the games playable even, without the original cartridge or tape or whatever format it came on. And to make sure that everyone with a cracked copy of a game knew who it was that had enabled them to play this for free, crackers would add a sort of title card to the games, sometimes with their alias, but more commonly with the name of the cracker group that they were part of. These cracktros quickly evolved from simple texts on solid backgrounds into more complex presentations with ambitious graphics, motion, and music. Over time, this essentially evolved into an art form on its own, and somewhere along the line, someone said, hey, we don't really need a game. We could just do these as a standalone thing. And thus the demo scene was born.
So I started making computer graphics in the, let's say, 87, 86, something like that. Basically, you did sort of artsy things to show off what the computer could do. You could kind of compete with doing interesting visual, not games, but something very like special effects, basically.
So in summary, a demo is essentially a sort of audio-visual flex, and demo groups would show off and compete against other demo groups at demo parties and LANs, such as the 𝐄𝐈𝐋 convention 1992, organized by the demo group Elektra out of Stockholm, featuring members Stefan, Jesper and Jens. Or around a year or so after 𝐄𝐈𝐋 92, on the opposite side of the country in Gothenburg, Computer Crossroads, organized by the group Omega, with notable group member Johannes.
We met a group called Elektra, so that's when I met Jens and Jesper and Stefan for the first time. This must have been 89 or 90, something like that.
Fun fact, here in Sweden, the Swedish demo scene has been inscribed as part of our intangible cultural heritage, which is basically a fancy way of saying that an actual government agency has officially declared the Swedish demo scene to be on the list of Swedish culture canon, along with such entries as study circles, ice baths, ostkaka, rotten fish, and fika. And we love all of those things. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it was a fantastic time. Just to expand a little bit, how do you even compete in programming? Well, what would that even mean? Basically, what you compete in is do something that's really hard that no one else can do. And it also had to have some kind of artistic component to it. And if you did that, you know, that community really loved that and they were very devoted. It was a lifestyle.
And so if you wanted to do that, something that's hard to make smart, pretty and fun, with the technical constraints of the machines that you had to work with at that time, you had to optimize the ever-living shit out of it. And as you probably understand, those kinds of skills, i.e. making the most out of whatever hardware you're working with, makes for a pretty good foundation for aspiring video game developers.
They started developing a game for the Atari Jaguar.
It was quite natural for us because it was the only way you can get money by doing what you wanted to do. So we started to make a game of that, a tunnel racing game. We were thinking that it can't be too hard. It was hard.
They wanted to make a sort of racing game in the vein of Wipeout or something like that, where you were racing in tunnels. And I was like, well, I just spent a couple of years working on graphics that had to do with tunnels. So that's why it sort of clicked. And obviously we liked each other from the demo scene as well. But that's why it felt so natural to start talking about working together on this game.
Music is so good. I didn't find a good place in the video to mention this, but all the music is made by Johannes' dad. The sort of like small team, cozy, dynamic, really goes through all aspects of the game. His dad has a band called Twice a Man, who just made the entire soundtrack to the game, which is so cool.
We started with a racing game, but we skipped that because Johannes, he came up with a much better idea.
But I don't think saying that Johannes came up with a better idea sort of does the story justice, because he wasn't actively trying to come up with a new game concept. Instead,
the original sort of, let's say, the mechanical game concept of Kula World came to me in a dream. This is some time ago, but it was an important dream because it changed my life, basically. I would say it was in third person. I saw a ball rolling on these pillars and in this labyrinth and navigating the surfaces of the beams in a very specific way. It was the pure game mechanic, but it was in Kula World, you see it from behind the ball. I would say I saw it more from a further perspective, like from like a skewed angle, from almost like a bird's eye view. I don't know how common this is, but I think Brio, like a kid's toy manufacturer in Sweden, they had like a labyrinth game where you had a small metal ball that you had to guide by using two like rotary things in a 2D maze. And as I showed you the sketch, is what I drew on paper, the minute I woke up. And then, of course, I started to think about what could this game mechanic mean. And I made an animatic in 3D Studio DOS at the time, and I shared that with the rest of the team. And I felt that it was really good in terms of being a game mechanic that we could build on. That was relatively simple and something we can do with a small team.
And the rest of the boys agreed, so they pivoted from the tunnel racing game and things moved pretty quickly from there. They managed to secure some venture capital funding by literally cold calling investors out of the phone book.
Back then you had this big phone directories with all the numbers for everyone in Sweden, huge books. I just went up, okay, what's the section for investors? Oh, this section. Okay, I'll start from the top, A. So I called the first one, and yeah, they were really great, and they wanted to meet, and yeah, it actually ended up with them financing us.
This was also when they decided to ditch the Atari Jaguar and instead secured a PlayStation dev kit from Sony. They rented a flat in Märsta where Jens, Jesper and Stefan worked while their buddies from the demo scene crashed in the closet.
He moved up to Stockholm to do his final work at Swedish Institute of Computer Science. So he lived in our wardrobe for half a year or a year or so. Whenever you got to work at 9 or so in the next couple of hours, at some time Matthias woke up and came out of the wardrobe.
The fourth member and the dreamer of the dream, Johannes, stayed in Gothenburg, emailing his files back and forth to the gang in Stockholm, and somehow managed to not trigger a moral panic about, remote work. Different times, I guess.
I think I cherish this time, like in the 90s, where the game teams were really small and you can really sort of gel and come together as a team and have a very unified vision. You could work on the ideas together in a very tight team, and we didn't do much in terms of documentations or presentations and all of that works that you need if you have a larger team of 20 or 200 people.
Yeah, it was one of the best developer experiences I had. It was fun, much more fun than most of the stuff you do nowadays. When you have bigger teams, it's much harder to make everything consistent.
Now, at this time, if you had a PlayStation dev kit, Sony had a policy of checking in on what you were doing with it. So, with a few funny haircuts and close to zero experience with the actual games industry, the boys got on a plane and left the country to attend ECTS, the European Computer Trade Show. And like any self-respecting demo team, they brought along with them a VHS tape of some rough early gameplay footage. And the goal with this trip was twofold. 1. Try and find a publisher interested in their weird little game. And number 2, do the mandatory Sony meetup just to show them what they're working on.
And we went to meet with different companies like I think Psygnosis, Gremlin, EA, lots of different people, and we had that videotape to show them. But we were such a unknown. We hadn't done anything before, so.
Or we tried to show them it to EA, but they were not even interested in talking to us, even though we had the game with us to show them work. I think it was even working on PlayStation. They just wanted us to do something with they tried to talk us into do something with FIFA. I don't remember.
And I know this is low-hanging fruit, but there's something so cosmically perfect about EA seeing this demo for a quirky little physics-based puzzle game from 4 20-year-olds from Sweden and immediately being like,
Ah, yes, but could you make it more like a sport? Perchance, could there be a football man running behind the Kula ball? And maybe instead of the green X, we were thinking, what if it was more of like a net hanging on a frame? What if the bonus worlds were microtransactions?
But credit where credit is due. I mean, I bet EA at least would have had no qualms about giving me my Swedish flag skin for the Kula ball. No, I'm not over it. Just look at what we could have had. If it weren't for Crooked Game Design, Sweden, AB. Sleepy Johannes.
But I think after that trade show, we had kind of a mandatory meeting with what I think was called like a Sony's account manager.
Yeah, this guy, he looked like Harrison Ford, I remember.
It was like one other person from Sony that looked at it, and it was kind of their duty to look at this game.
And we showed it to one or two guys.
He was like, oh, this is really promising. I like this.
And then he said, I really like this game. And he called in, I think, his manager, and he said, well, we're on a game fair. I have some producer here.
And they were like bringing in other people, like, come have a look at what these guys have done.
And he also liked it. And then I said, you know what, can I bring in my manager? And yeah, of course.
And then they went away and got more people to the room.
Eventually, the meeting room was basically full of people who were really excited about our game.
After a while, the room was full of people playing this game, and they really loved it. They loved the core gameplay of it. This is really addictive. This is really smart. This is really what we want to be associated with.
And I'm not saying that we literally got the contract in that room at that hour, but it felt like it. It felt like that was the moment where we knew that this would become a game. And Sony themselves were interested in talking to us about publishing it and so on.
And you also have to remember, we didn't even thought about the idea of getting Sony as a distributor. They were at that time the world's largest distributor. They got like 4,000 or 5,000 proposals each year, and they chose maybe one or two external.
So that for me was one of those just insane moments where we had struggled on the trade show and felt like we were sort of underestimated and belittled by gaming companies, and we were really troubled by that. I think how hard it was to get people to see how brilliant this game could be. And then being in that meeting room and seeing him literally pull people into the meeting, seeing their faces as they watched the video and realizing that, yeah, this could actually become a proper job. You know, it could actually work.
And fast forward about a year, on July 10th, 1998, Kula World was released in Europe. It came out in North America on November 27th, 1998 under the title Roll Away, and in Japan on May 27th, 1999 as Kula Quest. And okay, you've waited long enough. Let's dig into what it was that had all of those Sony executives salivating and earned Kula World a place on, again, one of the official Sony PlayStation demo discs that literally came with my PS1. And we're doing this 1998 style. No yellow paint, dedicated tutorial stages, or YouTube Let's Plays. I mean, I guess this sort of is a YouTube Let's Play, seeing how, you know, this is literally a YouTube video and I'll be playing the game, but you won't, but you just have to suspend your disbelief here for a little bit. And instead, pay some extra attention to how the game elements get introduced to the player. We've booted up the console, but not plugged in the controller. There we go. New game. Let's begin. As the camera rotates in towards our titular Kula, you, the player, find yourself on a platform shaped like a figure 8. And while the ambient music is calm, you immediately make note of the hourglass graphic at the top center of your screen. In a wordless language universally understood by gamers everywhere, the light bluish-white sand trickles from the top of the glass to the bottom, communicating in no uncertain terms that you better get moving. Taking stock of your surroundings, the exit glows red and there are multiple floating objects in your path. Your way forward is clear and you roll toward and into your first coin. The sound cue tells you everything you need to know. Coin good. And even if it hadn't, the increasing score number at the bottom center of your screen would. You continue onto the key. Another sound effect plays, and your intuitions are proven correct as you turn toward the exit to see that it's now turned green. Before you make your way towards it though, you turn once more to consume the apple that you've been eyeing since the start of the level. The sound effect, again, tells you everything you need to know. You're disgusting. In your bottom right-hand corner, an apple symbol gets filled in. You grab the last coin on your way out. Well done. In place of the contiguous figure 8, there are now instead 3 O's. all separated by a 1-block gap. Fortunately, you've heard of a video game once or twice before, so you approach the edge and make the jump. While airborne, you clear exactly 1 block of distance, letting you easily traverse the short gaps between the O's. Easy enough. Collect your collectibles, grapple with the lingering question: if the key grants passage and the coins give points, what is the purpose of the fruit? Well done. Now this is a doozy. You grab a coin and a fruit. Is a pumpkin a fruit? That's a vegetable, no? No way that's a fruit. A pumpkin can't be a fucking... Okay, it apparently is a fruit. The best fruit. Ow, 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 ow. You can't put your claws in me. You can hop up on my lap. What the fuck was that? You proceed to another coin and then vertical wall. You move towards it and it happens. You continue onto it and gravity shifts along with you. Wall becomes floor. You grab the key and remaining goodies and leave. Well done. As a veteran of 1 or 2 video games before this, you do not need to be told that the red spikes are meant to be avoided. Effortlessly, you make your way over them. You turn the world again, reorienting itself around you, and you grab the key on the upper edge. But this time, it is not enough. A couple more crimes against the laws of physics and you're now on the side of the platform where the first key was, and here you grab the second key, but you turn back. You're not done quite yet. You're not leaving those bananas behind. Not when you've come this far. You don't even risk the spikes, instead clearing the middle gap to the second to last of the fruit. Then you make your way over to the exit and you leave. Well done. A simple U-shape presents 4 separate planes to roll along, as well as the tippy tops of both ends. You grab the blue gem closest to you and then make your way inside the U, grabbing the last of the strawberries though. Strawberries are not, that's a berry. That's a berry for sure. Are strawberries. Strawberries are not a berry. Aggregate fruit. Ah, okay. Whatever. Fucking super overrated fruit anyway. As you grab it, the 5 fruit icons in the corner of your screen get replaced by 5 letters, satisfyingly animated to spell out the word bonus. Before you leave, you grab the last gem and you don't try to jump over these spikes. You make your way to the exit. Well done. The world is different now. You're different now. You make your way around the starting platform, and as the untouched blocks transform into touched blocks, their colors change. The new and somewhat cryptic HUD element exclusive to this world changes along with them. For every block you touch, one of the 8 pie slices disappears until they're all gone, replaced by new ones, but now with 1 fewer dot to the left of them. You again consider your surroundings. No exit. You continue. Soon enough, you touch the final block. Well done. Five normal levels and 1 bonus level. That's how long it took for you to learn all of the fundamental rules of the game, without as much as a single line of text other than the well done. Should I have this buttoned? Is that more professional? I feel like it's just more stiff. Now, I'm not going to be going through all of the different types of blocks and items, but just to list a few. Sunglasses, which temporarily allow you to see invisible blocks. Hourglasses, which turns your spent time into remaining time and vice versa. Drugs, that make you go slow while speeding up your timer. Drugs, that make you constantly jump twice the length of a normal jump. Teleporters in
4.
different colors. Lasers in
4.
different colors. Buttons in
4.
different colors, responsible for activating and deactivating the teleporters and or lasers of the corresponding color. Spikes that move, spikes that move, spikes that move. Wheels, hurricanes, whatever this is, that move. And then there's of course the different kinds of blocks like ice that'll make you unable to stop, heat that'll cause your whole body to pop, arrows that make it so that you can only move in the direction they're pointing, clock face which freezes time while you're standing on it, invisible blocks that you can only see when you're up close, the other type of invisible block that you can see from afar but not up close. Oh yeah, invisible blocks wasn't enough. We gotta have these new invisible blocks that you can see from a distance, but when you're on them, you don't see anything. Oh, can I go here? I guess I can. I need to memorize the fucking... And whatever this unnatural abomination is. And all of this goes together and plays off of each other to create a really fucking challenging game. With so many subtleties to its on the surface simplistic mechanics that I couldn't list them all if I tried. One of the reasons that this video took so long to make was that I wanted to make sure that I beat the whole game before I started on the script, and it wasn't always very fun, I'll tell you that. Okay, this bitch ass level, this fucking cock ass level 95, man. I don't even need to beat the game, technically, right? Technically, I don't. Fuck this level. Fuck 116. I'd rather die. Now, more observant viewers might have noticed that throughout the gameplay that I've shown in this video so far, it's been sort of a mishmash between the PAL version of the game and the Japanese version of the game, Kula Quest. This is mostly because while the PAL version is the most accessible to me here in Sweden, the Japanese version of the game is the most polished of the three, as that was the last one to be released. It also has the best cover art. Don't get me wrong, this cover art is also great, and the American release is fine, I guess. It's basically just this one, but slightly worse, with a shittier name. Roll away? Yeah, I sure hope it does. By the way, the physical release, the one that I have here, is actually courtesy of my childhood best friend Kim, who graciously loaned me his copy for this video. Can I get a thank you, Kim, in chat, please? And if you happen to think that I do deserve my own copy of Kula World without paying the ridiculous asking prices that they go for these days, then maybe you should send me an email at this address with the title, "Please take this complete copy of Kula World off of my hands for free." It's not like you're using your copy anyway, it's just laying around. And it's not gonna make you rich, it's like $100 at most. But regardless of which region copy you're talking about, they all have this one detail that I really like, which was also pointed out to me by Kim before I even got my hands on the physical copy. Thank you, Kim. And that is that the manual of the game has its pages rotated in different directions, forcing the reader to, much like our titular Kula, change the meaning or perception of what is up and what is down as you make your way through it. I'm half expecting to look at the bottom of one of these pages and just find a footnote from Johnny Truant talking about catching syphilis from some girl from Malibu named Dragon or some shit. Another thing that Kula Quest, the Japanese release, has going for it is this 95 pages long strategy guide book that released alongside the Japanese version of the game. I was able to get a hold of a physical copy of this thanks to friend of the channel, Paper Will. Thank you, Will. And it contains sort of a walkthrough for every single level of the game, and these illustrations are just so fucking good. I'm probably showing you some of them on screen right now. I do say sort of a walkthrough though, because I was of the impression that they would be sort of describing the route you need to take to beat every level, but that's not it. Instead, it's just like this small blurb of text that says hint. And I don't read or speak Japanese, but I used the Translate app on my phone, and some of these seem to not be super helpful. Like, it's not impossible, you just have to find the thing, which is like, yeah, okay, thank you. But it is still nuts that it contains all of the main levels of the game. And the reason why that is kinda nuts is because Kula World Quest has a lot of levels. How many exactly?
Oh, that should have been burnt into my... and I have forgot. I don't know, 100 levels or something?
About 120 or 35 or something. I don't remember exactly.
Like 130 or 150 levels, something like that.
Is it 150 plus 20 or something like that?
Close, but not quite. Kula World features a whopping 210 levels. There are 150 regular levels, those are covered in this book, and then there are the 30 bonus levels, the trippy ones that you access by collecting the fruit. Then there are the 10 hidden levels throughout the game, which you can access by finding an alternative exit on some of the levels, so that's 190 levels. But then, once you've beaten the base game, you unlock 20 additional levels in a new mode called Finals. And I can't stress enough just how fucking frustratingly hard these levels are. Let's put it like this, if you took my dad and locked him in a box and then sort of slid him food every day so he'd live in there, and the only thing he'd have is a PlayStation 1 with this game, and the only stipulation you give him is that like you'll be locked in here until you've beat this game and then you get to come out. My dad would not. he'd be in that box forever. I also could have used me as an example. I couldn't do it either, but it's funnier to imagine someone's dad in the Kula box.
But I think we also made a mistake to have this huge amount of levels. We should have probably settled down with something like 100 or something to have a higher, more quality levels.
And while I think the length of the game is ultimately a good thing, it is a little bit nice to hear Jesper criticize the game a little bit, because this game sort of became my personal nightmare while playing through it, and the really annoying part is that it has so few flaws. There are no glitches, there are literally 0 slowdowns at any point, which means that I could very rarely, if ever, blame the game when I kept failing. It's always just my fault, and I hate that. I hate when it's my fault. Should never be my fault, as far as I'm concerned. And like, games for the PlayStation 1 famously didn't always run so well, but that doesn't go for this one. Like, it's by far the best running PlayStation game that I've ever played, but you don't have to take my word for it.
We worked really hard to get everything running in 50 frames per second, or in US 60 frames per second.
Basically, that means that you update the picture 60 times a second, which is really, really taxing on the hardware. It's quite hard, and not a few games did, but very few.
We spent huge amount of time optimizing everything.
Sony had developed, it's a bit technical, but basically you could capture a second of the game. You can capture all the data from that, how it's utilized and all of that sort of stuff.
It was some analyzer, some kind of performance analyzer. So they run our code and basically measured everything, each clock cycle, of the bus and each processor, everything.
And then download it to a PC, which took all the numbers, and it could be like red or yellow or green. And they said they have never seen so much green.
The same team that ran those tests, that was actually the same team that did Gran Turismo, which was a big racing game in Japan.
Obviously, that's a huge team and like engineered to perfection, done together with Sony and tied into the hardware, and they know exactly what they're doing.
And we just beat them. It was just flat lines, green flat lines everywhere. And that was a result of all those years in the demo scene, because that was what we did, right? We optimized so hard in order to achieve the end goal.
Funnily enough, in this issue of PlayStation Magasinet that I showed off previously, there is a sneak preview of Kula World before it was released. And only a couple of pages later, there is another sneak preview for Gran Turismo. And in this write-up of Gran Turismo, there is this little blurb here about the Sony Performance Analyzer and how this is one of the first games, if not the first game, to have been developed using that. There's even a little screenshot of how the program looks. And it's just very cool to me that these guys who did not have access to that tool, who only got to try it when they were like visiting the Sony offices in London, still managed to make a game that ran equally as well, possibly even better depending on your source, as the cream of the PS1 crop. Hard, smart, pretty.
It's a little bit like chess, like the rules are very easy, but to master it, you know, you could do it an entire life and you would still not master it. And I think that's one of the reasons it was so popular.
You know, there's something so fascinating about how, especially when it comes to games, the most basic of concepts seem to be the ones that stand the test of time. From rock, paper, scissors and tic-tac-toe to Tetris and Snake to roll away Kula World Quest. Kula World ended up being the only game published by Game Design Sweden. After Kula, they rebranded to Playcom and started NetBaby World in 1999, which is one of those sort of proto-flash game websites with social features like, you know, having a profile or chatting, stuff like that. NetBaby World is actually still up today, but unfortunately none of the games work anymore because they're all Adobe Shockwave based. Weird how that keeps happening with Adobe products, huh? It's almost as if their whole business idea is to buy up other people's software, make them worse, and make you pay more. Yeah, it's 𝐄𝐌𝐀𝐈𝐋. NetBaby World actually won a Webby for Best Gaming Website at the 6th ever Webby Awards in 2002, beating out EA of FIFA fame, Gamasutra and PopCap Games, makers of Bejeweled and Plants vs. Zombies, and a foxy strip poker game that seems to be Lost Media. I don't know what this is, but it's definitely piqued my curiosity. And this is definitely a tangent, but the 2002 Webby Awards overall were pretty wild. Playcom shared the almost certainly metaphorical stage with some other scrappy startups like Amazon.com for Best Commerce Site, The Onion for Best Comedy Site, the official Donnie Darko website, which is, by the way, so fucking cool, for Best Film Site, the All Your Bays Are Belong to Us meme for Best People's Choice of Weird, and of course Google for Best Practices. We just didn't know how good we had it. Something good old days before you left them. The Office quote. Not even that good of a quote. We can stop with that now. After Playcom, the boys spread out and did a bunch of different things like I said before, but as is so often the case, the company behind a game being dead and gone does not mean that the same thing goes for the fan community. In fact, over the years, multiple Kula-likes have sprung up, and the first one that I'll mention is sort of an outlier, Puzzle Dimension, released in June of 2010. And the reason that this one sticks out is because it was developed by Dr. Entertainment, which is the studio that Jesper started after Game Design Sweden AB went bust. So if any of the Kula-likes are to be considered a canonical spiritual successor, it'd be this one. But apart from that, we've got a couple of old Shockwave games like Terminal Decay and Frenzy Rinth, the wonderfully vapor-wavy Axis. Then there's Cubosphere, which was abandoned and inspired the creation of Project Crystal, which then in turn led to Rolling Quest, which as far as I can tell is being actively maintained and updated. Then there's Gravity Trickster, which released on PS4, PS5, Switch and Steam, and it sort of feels like what you'd get if you took everything that's cool and fun and aesthetically interesting about Kula World and then just removed it, just added Unreal Engine ray tracing. That felt really mean. I'm sorry, this is very unappealing to look at. And then, finally, of course, not quite a 𝐄𝐌𝐿𝐼𝐋 per se, but definitely one of the main pillars keeping the Kula fandom healthy and alive, Kula Workshop.
So Kula Workshop is, at its core, just a big modding project. We kind of set out a while ago to spend a lot of time figuring out how this game exactly works, and our goal is to provide all the modding tools necessary to eventually just fully make the game as you wish. We see this game as something that should be really accessible to people, purely for how unique and novel it is. I think it's a really cool game.
That's Murphy, modder web developer and one of the two brains who run the Kula Workshop, along with 𝐵𝚃𝚃𝚃.
It was the first game I actually ever played in my entire life. My dad introduced me to it. And this game has something, it's really hard to explain, but it has something with it that it feels like there's more than what you're actually given. And it's actually the reason why I even got into computer science, was taking apart this game.
Kula Workshop is part archive, part modding resource, part meta puzzle, and 100% reason to remember the name. It's sort of the next natural step for this type of cult classic video game, a shared knowledge base for everything Kula, from cut content to custom modding tools.
Everybody I've met who loves this game always wanted to like make their own levels. Like that is just something that people have always liked. So I've constantly pursued that.
They've like reversed engineered the whole game. They've got a level editor which they're currently remaking from the ground up, along with a new texture editor. There's a sort of randomizer tool, a tool for modifying the sound effects. They can switch out the skyboxes. The list goes on. Like when I reached out to ask if I could speak to them, I also asked if they had any save files that I could have so that I could more easily go to specific levels when recording the gameplay footage, and 𝐵𝚃𝚃𝚃 just straight up made me a mod for the game that allows me to pick a world and level. And this runs natively on the PlayStation. Like, he whipped that up in an hour or something. These guys are fucking nuts.
One of the biggest things that I found was, because there is no public list of every single demo for Kula World. So what we had to do was painstakingly find all of the demo discs and see if Kula World was inside of it. And I actually found a demo that contained the unused hedgehog enemy. And it's a really, really hard fucking demo. It is extremely hard. It's the Hyper PlayStation Remix 1999, the 9th disc. It's just 5 levels, and it's in Mars for some reason, but they are really hard.
But even more so than the specifics of their project, what struck me when I talked to them was how classical this whole project feels. This is how students used to learn, you know? I mean, back in like the marble statues and monolith days. You'd learn rhetoric and art by copying the works of the masters, getting intimately familiar with every little detail of their craftsmanship, turning their muscle memory into yours, and then you were let loose to create stuff for yourself. And I don't mean to go overboard and like compare Kula World with like Play-Doh or something, or to imply that you have to learn how to decompile and reverse engineer ancient source code to make a game. Ask me how I know. But I do find it really heartening to see something like Kula World being treated as, you know, a text, something to copy, to dig into, to preserve, and to riff on. And I of course can't help but notice that this is coming from a small team of creative young developers, bent on the idea of breaking apart this thing that they love and presenting it to the world in a harder, smarter, and prettier way. Actually, I do have one more thing. I've always found it really fascinating just how much invisible work had to go into even getting games to function back on the hardware of the 90s and 2000s. And recently, Game Maker's Toolkit released this super in-depth video about how GTA 3 pulled off having a fully open world on a PlayStation 2, really highlighting just how much innovation was required back then, simply because many of these things had not been done before. And it is with much joy that I inform you that that video, as well as the video you're watching right now, was first made available on Nebula. There it is, we did it, chat. It happened. Now you're watching my videos, you've heard of Nebula before, but on the off chance that you haven't, Nebula is home to some of the most creative, interesting, and funny creators around. There are no ads and you get early access to videos from your faves. Me, for example, along with a bunch of original content. And did I mention that I'm on there now, because I am. So if you want to check out my videos early, or the Nebula-only content that I'll put there going forward, any of their exclusive shows like The Anatomy of, or why not the extended cut of Liam Triforce's Sega Saturn retrospective, huge recommend, you can do all of that over at Nebula. And if you use my brand new link, that'll get you 50% off, meaning, and please take these numbers in, $30 for a year. That's what, less than $2.50 a month? Go.nebula.tv/jeffiot if you fancy typing it all out for some reason, or just scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description. Please convince them that it wasn't a mistake to bring me on. Okay, that should be all. She jeffing on my iOD until I neb in her EULA.